It wasn't. It's a soft one. Oops.
That's what she said. Hey guys, welcome to episode 49 of Sea of Knee Towers, Brews, and Builds. I'm Mr. Commodore 5, and my fellow host once paid Leonin to get access to the Light of Promise, but it turned into an Omniket scam. Big Tuck.
Whoa,
what's going on?
A lot of deep-seated references in that. I'm impressed. It's good. It keeps coming. You keep dropping these heater openers.
Literally came up because there was just Light of Promise sitting next to me, and I was like, I need a bit, and I made it on the spot.
Would you also like to? Would you also, for everyone listening, say how excited you are about your collector's booster?
I'm very excited about my collector's boosters. I bought 3 booster packs and a booster box, and I got roughly $560, and that's only cards over $1. That doesn't include any of the chaff.
Sure. It's a Game of Thrones cookbook all over again. So more importantly, hey, crows and crowesses, perhaps. I kind of like the deck we're playing has a weird Raven theme to it. I don't know. I can't.
Is this Edgar Allan Poe tribal?
Ooh, I like that. Nevermore All-Star.
Wow.
There we go.
Genius.
And he's illiterate.
I'm good.
I love it.
As always, I'm enjoying a lovely beer from our old pal Rock Creek Brewing Company.
There it is.
This will be the Rye Love Rye IPA.
This is your Game of Thrones cookbook.
and to your point, I have discussed this beer before on the show. This is why I bring it up, but I'm good. It's had friend of the show Tyson. Here we are last week, so.
Yeah.
Kind of threw my week off a little bit, and before that, I had my other friend from Fort Collins come in. There was no Magic that weekend, so I had a couple weekends that were kind of crazy and out and around, which I'm not used to because now we all live lives within the same confines of ourselves. But it's good, man. Thursday night, I had a great Action 4 news before this, kind of shaking it off. So I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, had like 6 to 8 people over for the 4th. It's this weird, I'm not like what Regina George. I'm not Regina from
Mean Girls.
Mean Girls.
Oh,
there we go.
Right, yes,
yeah,
nice.
That's right.
That's a great movie
with the Mean Girls reference.
I know, considering I've never even seen the movie.
What? You would like it so much.
I cannot believe you're about to make a reference quote from there, having not seen it.
He did the same thing with Tiger King, which also blew my mind, because you would also love that. Mean Girls and Fired Up, both of them amazing.
Oh, Fired Up is amazing. That movie is comedic genius.
I think neither of them, though, can hold a candle to Stomp the Yard. But no, so it was
correct.
It was great. It was awesome, a lot of fun. I think tomorrow, at the time of this recording, me and Duffman, we're going to go play some disc golf if it's not too wet. Apparently it's supposed to storm again tonight. So, we'll have to kind of see. I'm willing to break out my old man North Face shoes. Straight up look like some dad shoes that you'd go mowing in. They're no New Balances.
I was going to say, they're not Air Monarch, though, right?
I got some pretty nice boots if you want to try those out.
I don't think... Oh, I guess we similar. Your foot's a little bit smaller, though.
Do you own a pair?
I think they're 12s.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Combo, do you own a pair of boots? I don't think I've ever seen you wear a pair of boots.
Oh, actual boots? No.
Or I think I've seen you wear dress shoes that are boot styled. But you don't own a pair of Timberlands or any of that stuff, right?
No.
So what are you gonna do?
He's not a boot guy. He wears shorts in the wintertime. It's like shorts.
That's true.
It's all the time.
And then that furry Patagonia thing, which looks very
nice.
warm.
But no, outside of that, it's been good. Work's been weird this week. It's I was busy, but it's already Thursday, and I'm like, where did the week go? So I feel like that's a good thing. This went by fast.
This has been a time warp, Teferi's time warp week, where it feels like it's taken forever to get here. But during the day, I'm go, and I'm like, oh, there's not near enough time to do all this, right?
When I woke up this morning, I swore it was Friday.
Or Fry, yay. Well, thanks for tuning into the episode, guys. And as always, with that Manolith commentary from Rich Chaos Records Studio is Squee McGee. How's it going on, McGee, Squee?
Oh, it's going pretty well. My week's been solid. Had a couple of days off there. Back to the beer co today, making sweet brew for KC and the surrounding areas.
And for me.
And for, yes, Big Tuck in particular. He enjoys the Dunkel. If y'all want to send him some, feel free.
It's a very easy drinkable beer, so it's one of the best ones out here.
But yeah, I'm doing good. Just been hanging around the house a little bit and working. Doing some recording, still getting those vocals done, but actually was excited to get out and see Tice, friend of the show. Actually met friend of the show Tice. He's a real person.
Yeah, believe it.
He's alive.
He is also a different person than Scooty Shuffles. For those who are curious about that, they are two distinct entities.
But yeah, that was a good time. So it was nice to get out and see him. And other than that, yeah, doing great.
That's awesome. And if you guys want to know more ways to help support Summertime Squee,
There it is. That is correct.
and the rest of the CMD Tower team and all the content we do, head over to our sponsor, Level 1 Game Shop. They sell Magic accessories like our CMD Tower playmat and Mat 100 pack sleeves. They also do have a TCG Players store, so if you want to get a playmat and some sleeves and maybe a box of M21 Collector's Boosters, by the way, did you hear my story about that? They can definitely hook you up. Another way to support the show is head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMD Tower. We have 4 different pledge levels, and rewards vary from the Squeeze Choir. If you join in the month of July, you will qualify for the new deals that we're having come out, which, by the way, are really sweet. They're in production, art done by Marketing Ross himself,
amazing.
the legend.
It's amazing.
By the way, why don't each of us just take a quick 15 seconds and describe what was made for us? Big Tuck, why don't you start us off?
So I'm a big fan of the Monarch mechanic, which is awesome and one of my favorite mechanics in Magic. So there is a great artwork of myself, clearly with the abs. You can tell it's me. Just having a great time on a throne, well in his element, and it's going to be a great. I think you said it's going to be like a heavier card to note the Monarch. So it would be a great thing to have in your bag just in case someone's playing it and they don't have it, so you don't have to go scrounging through trade binders.
Yeah, it's actually going to be made out of like this gold metal plating, and it's going to be full color art on one side, and then the reverse side, we're actually taking the CMD Tower logo that Mr. Magoo, that you guys have all seen and loved, designed, and so it's just going to be black on the gold. So it's going to be very, very cool.
Classy.
Squee McGee, what did you get designed for you?
Oh, see, I got a coin, which I'm very excited about because it's nice. It's metal. It's going to be nice. So it's going to say, "Get up and fight" on one side. It's got a picture of a really angry Squee, kind of yelling at people with my tongue sticking out. I got all white eyes, so it's a rage-filled day. And then the other side says "sitting tight." So I might actually use this to just not tell anybody when the turn's over. I might just slide the "sitting tight" coin out there and then just kind of dip out of the scene.
Here you go.
I'm pretty excited about it. It looks amazing. Marketing Ross did a killer job making me look very calm and very angry all at the same time.
Awesome. And mine, of course, as you guys know, I am the quote-unquote combo player with so many triggers it's hard to remember. So I had a reminder token card made. It's basically a sideways portrait of me sitting there with my namesake Hookah, and I am floating a set of cards with a bunch of cards on the table. I look stressed. I
look
just
so
really
sad.
I'm so sad because I know I forgot a trigger. I don't know what trigger I forgot. And so this is a great token that you can put on the table, made of the same material Big Tux is. And if it's just like, you know what, I need to remember that Aloro trigger, or I need all my opponents to remember the Smothering type trigger. So maybe you pass that around and put it on top of their deck when it's their turn.
I love it.
Just anything to be obnoxious, but also hopefully help you remember your triggers. So you'll get all 3 of those if you just join a minimum of Squeeze Choir, but we do have bigger tiers beyond that the top tier does even get you the CMD Tower playmat and sleeves. But you know what? If you can't help us financially by joining our Patreon, we are actually looking, even though this is a financial thing, looking to actually create a store on the site as well. So if you just want to pick up the 3 Amigos, you don't want to commit to a monthly deal on the Patreon, you'll be able to go buy them and just go get it for that way, you can still support us and still get some really sweet swag. But if you can't do money, you could do it for free by just sharing the content you are watching and listening to. Every little bit of interaction from the collective does help. And of course, every episode, Big Royal, PIR in reverse, or as they would say in Pig Latin, what would that be? Ipre?
Yeah, I think that's right.
And of course, guys, stay tuned till the end so you get details on how you can win that mystery draft kit for 4. So Brews and Builds is our deck tech series. It's all about the decks that Big Tuck, our guest, and I have in our Path to 32. Every episode, we're going to talk about one of those Path to 32 decks, but in a cool manner of brewing beers, apparently from Rock Creek Brewery.
Always.
Woo!
So we broke it down into 4 categories. The first one's rampant setting your board state. That's the grain bill.
Yes, and grains are the foundation of every beer. They include both base malts and specialty malts, usually in about a 60-40 ratio. This helps with the color, the taste, and most importantly, the alcohol content of the beer. Decks always needs ways to grow, stabilize, and ramp into your bigger threat. And just like a grain profile, they're usually a mix of staples and specialty cards.
And then the next one's going to be, how does your board interact with all of your opponents? Permanents, spells, hands, and just general funness. Call them that hops.
Their souls. Hops give the beer its patented bitterness and herbal and floral flavors. They grow in a variety of strains and help distinguish subcategories like IPAs. Our hop choices help clear and interact with the board so your deck can actually do what it wants.
And then the next thing, my favorite piece, and Big Tuck likes to pretend it's not, but he really likes doing this. He likes to know how the deck's actually going to close out and win. We're calling that yeast.
Yes, and yeast are living microorganisms that eat the sugar from the grain and poop out alcohol and CO2. It adds alcohol content in the carbonation. Without yeast, you'd be drinking flat sugar water, and without yeast cards, your deck wouldn't meet the goal of actually winning the game.
And then this is the section that Big Tuck likes to pretend is his favorite, but it's really not. We have a kind of weird pet card synergies, things that you would think like, does it fit in the deck? We're calling that spice.
And not every beer has them, but spices and other additives help separate a normal stock beer from a specialty one. It could be the pepper that turns a stout into jalapeno stout, or the addition of hops that turn an IPA into a double IPA. Not every deck has something that makes it pop, but if it does, this is where we generally talk about it.
And then to seal the deal on the episode, we have a bottle capping. This is going to be Big Tuck's, our guest, and I's recommendations and cuts to the deck that are under $5, under $50, and a personal recommendation with no budget. The only restrictions, we can't talk about mana-only lands. So without further ado, let's get brewing. This is a deck that Big Tuck said we would never talk about, which I guess we're just on a trend of this now. First it was Lavinia's citywide lockdown. Now it's Nekusar, I draw, you draw, everyone draw.
Did I say that? Did I say that?
Oh, you did.
What
Say
an
that
idiot.
very expressly.
So, Big Tuck, why don't you describe to us your second Grixis deck, I believe? Because we did your other one, your Marchesa.
Yep.
Because you threw a fit and said I couldn't do Nicol Bolas, but then we did it anyways.
You did it anyways when I was in Israel, I'm pretty sure, or somewhere else far, far away from the reach of this. So this is Grixis Part 3, which again, these all kind of fall into different categories, which I think is interesting. So for those who are playing the home game, most people know Nekusar, the Mindrazer. He kind of is the de facto person in this range. So 2 colorless and Grixis for 2/4 legendary creature zombie wizard. I'm not wearing my glasses, so Mr. Combo, can you please help me out with the text inside the box?
Sure. At the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws an additional card, and whenever an opponent draws a card, Nekusar the Mindrazer deals 1 damage to that player, which it is a big deal that he is dealing the damage.
Correct.
It is not command damage, but there are little shenanigan things that can either A, prevent that damage, or B, make it a lot worse. And he has flavor text.
Okay.
Can you actually read the flavor text?
Okay, so we can, but okay, so I have a little, this is not a bit, this is a little specialty thing, peeling back the curtains a little bit.
Okay.
So, back when I only had 5 decks and thought my deck building career was over, I would actually go through and write down like a little flavor text blurb about this deck, right? So I'm rereading this now. It is A, very bleak and kind of shockingly relevant to our current social and political state. So, Nekusar has a long memory. He remembers the time of peace where resources were plentiful, people were happy, and the sky was clear, but also remembers the time of war, the times of famine, the time when people at the top hoarded to keep themselves alive at the cost of the people at the bottom. He remembers it all, and now he will make the weak and the strong pay for those memories. Oof.
Wow.
That's a spicy.
That's dark.
I can't believe it, right?
Did you come up with that?
I did. I honestly did, straight up. Yeah, it's in italics and all that stuff. So
wow.
So Nekusar is kind of like this go-to deck. I think one of the reasons why I wanted to play it, and we've talked about how this month we're trying to do like the "Don't Hurt Me, Please." There's another deck we could have kind of talked about, but I wasn't super excited about it. But I think this is a weird subset of that where you build it. You try to build it so that people can't hurt you, and you're pushing it out, right? So the deck that I have this most similar to, in my opinion, is like a Perforos deck, where it's kind of innocuous, right? Yeah. And this deck quickly turns into the arch enemy. If you're really good at politicking and, shoveling bowl dirt, then you can tell people, no, I'm just helping everyone draw. It's okay. Like, hey, do you want a wheel? Hey, do you want a new hand? That sort of thing. It's totally fine.
Are you telling these to 9-year-olds? Because that's the only person that's going to believe you. So,
I'm pretty sure the 9-year-olds that we've seen at level 1 would see right through this as well.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing here, your build is clearly not a please don't swing at me deck. It's definitely a if you don't kill me, you're gonna die in like 2 turns, because that has happened. It's very much like my Xerus deck. If you leave Xerus just unchecked,
right,
you're gonna lose. Now you can build Nekusar like you built your cycling deck, Lance Armstrong.
Oh, yeah.
You can definitely build a Nekusar deck like you built your Zerg, where it is group hug draw, and maybe the only damage is coming off of Nekusar.
Right.
Because it's like, hey guys, I can't help it, but I let you draw 4 cards for 4 damage. It's kind of like with Xerus. It's like, hey, can I hit you for 5?
Right,
and
yeah,
you can draw
exactly.
5 cards? But you have so many other things that make it so much worse, just like I do. You're a monster.
This deck, there is probably a lot of commonality between like this and Xerus. So I think like Nekusar was the wheel deck, and now Xerus is kind of filling that in a different gap.
I mean, if you think about it, it's just like how does black do it versus how green does it.
Yeah, I totally agree. But the thing with Don't Hurt Me is I know this, so I have slammed in as many cards as possible that make it possible to be like, hey, please don't hurt me. I swear I will win this game, but we really need to stop this from happening.
So, if we were going to rank your decks, I'm curious, because you always like to pretend that you live in like this 5 to 6 range, which I think is just hockey.
A bunch of horse hockey.
So Nekusar, from a power level standpoint, I think you would agree that probably your top 2 decks, not in any particular order, Prosh, Perforos.
Probably, yeah. In terms of how consistent and how often they win, yes, I would agree with that.
So where does Nekusar kind of fall for you? Would you say it's a top 5 deck, top 10? I mean, you got almost 50 of them.
Right, and after I crack these precons, I guess I will have 50 of them and change. Yeah, it's definitely up there. This is not a deck that I play for fun, right? Like, this isn't a deck that you bring to the table and say, we're all going to have a blast, draw a bunch of cards. It's like when in Die Hard, when she says, come out to the coast, we'll have a few drinks, have a few laughs, and then later in the movie, he's like beaten and shot in the thing, and he's like, oh, come out to the coast, have a few drinks, couple laughs. So it's definitely that one. It falls into the normal pitfalls that you see in these colors of like it has slowish ramp. It kind of takes a while to get going. It's easy to get stuck. So part of that you can look at is like it's got a 3.3 CMC, which I think at some point this was over 4 when I first built it. Way back in the day. And I think this was my 4th or 5th deck. So it's definitely one where it's like if I am. It's a deck that sort of can run a little bit on autopilot to some extent, right? Like there are a few choices here to make, but mostly you're trying to go through the same thing of drawing cards, forcing your opponents to draw cards. So it's definitely in the top tier of winning and top tier of not fun decks. That all being said, if people are familiar with Magic, which most of the people that we are, they see a Nekusar deck come out, and you can't really tell them that it's not exactly what they think it is, right?
Yeah.
And the second they give you an inch, you can take it for a mile.
Well, and I will say 2 things. A, I did request that you play this deck when I did my Xerus deck because I thought it would be funny. That was a mistake. B, I will say you did put either you haven't tweaked the deck in such a long time, or you did an amazing amount of restraint because you don't have Infect, which Infect is usually a huge package within Nekusar, and that's why I kind of alluded, guys. It's a big deal that it says he deals the damage opposed to each opponent loses a life or that player loses a life, because you could give Nekusar Infect and wheel and pretty much kill the table.
Yeah, and I think for a while I had a grafted exoskeleton in here. It's just too narrow, right? And Nekusar costs 5 in Grixis, right? That's a lot to get to. So if he gets killed 1 or 2 times, those cards kind of turn into dead cards. So that's why I kind of built it more around like the theme of drawing cards, dealing damage, and then Nekusar is just the most efficient way to get there. So yeah, like I had grafted or Pheresis. I have a bunch of Pheresis thanks to friends of the show Tice. Here we are. But it just, I don't know. It kind of felt bad. It was kind of like a feel bad. I got to do it to borrow a term from Squee, the blue collar way, if you will.
Fair enough. And from a color distribution standpoint, you're a bit off. I'd probably revisit that. It looks like you could probably do with a little less red mana. I think you're in the perfect triangle pie for a 3-color deck.
Right.
So that's about the only comment I'd make on that. But other than that, I mean, the deck's pretty healthily balanced. You got a lot of mana rocks, which makes the grain section probably very common that we're going to talk about, which is a great segue over to that ramp and green build. And Tuck, why don't you start us off? What's the first card that people should be considering when they build a Nekusar deck?
So this card is definitely a blue collar card, if you will, not only in this deck, but also in the range of cards that they came from. I recently got a bunch of these in the mail, finally. So I actually had to look and figure out what deck this is in. So I'm talking about a legendary enchantment creature. The only one I have in the deck right now. I'm talking about Erebos, God of the Dead, and you are not.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so 3 colors in a black.
Actually, not a fan of this card.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So 3 colors in a black for an indestructible legendary enchantment creature god. It's a mythic from Theros. As long as your devotion to black is less than 5, it's not a creature. Your opponents can't gain life, which actually is one of the things I like the most about it. And then colorless black, pay 2 life, draw a card. So the reason I like this card in this deck is there is a fair amount of black pips being thrown around. So there's a chance where he will be able to be a very good blocker. I think I've attacked in this deck maybe a third of the time I've ever played it. And the thing I like it too is this deck dies to life gain decks, like Death and Taxes decks. This deck really has a hard time tracking it, right? You're not doing commander damage. And if someone's gaining 20, 30 life at a time, that kind of eats. And there is times where you don't get into your wheels, you don't get into your draws. So just having something where you can dump in a Worse Greed, draw the mana, draw the cards that you need, and then eventually, hopefully it turns into something more. That's where he kind of sits. Like, it's not a flashy spell. It's not one of the best gods ever printed, which is ironic because this leads tons of mono black decks for some reason, because I guess they just ran out of creativity.
I mean, so I think with this card, you actually have more blue pips in the deck than black. Don't know if you didn't know that or not.
I do not.
So a Thassa would probably make more on flavor, which I love Thassa.
She's very good.
And you definitely got one in those collectors or the Stargazer set.
I sure do.
But the other point I'll make is I think the reason I didn't actually cut Erebos from the deck is because in our meta, life gain is now more important. I think for this was a non-meta pick and it's just like, hey, I got 50 decks, I'm building this, I wouldn't even consider putting in Erebos, to be frank. Sure. But because, Frenemy, Patnat, and heck, even Squee, they all have decks that gain a lot of life.
Right.
And so this can be very relevant, because you're right, you can only make them draw so many cards. And do you really want the plan to be, I'm going to draw you out? No. You're going to lose that game real quick.
100%. And last thing I'll say on this too is, it's funny you mentioned our meta, because there was a card I was actually going to swap in that I've been thinking, and I was like, this wouldn't really work with the people I'm playing with now. So, yeah, it was interesting. So anyway,
you say not to do that.
So Erebos, like I said, kind of blue collar. Mr. Combo, what do you got up the streets? And granted, there's not a lot of options here. So
So I wanted to talk about a card that's just a better Howling Mind.
Yes.
We're talking about Font of Mythos. I've actually never seen this card before.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
I need to get one for my Xeris deck.
Yeah.
So it's a 4 colorless artifact, 350, so it's not crazy expensive.
Right.
It might cost a little bit more dollar-wise for what it does, but at the beginning of each player's draw step, that player draws 2 additional cards. That's pretty great. In decks like this, where you're constantly burning people out, they're drawing an additional one with Nekusar anyways, so that's 4 damage during their draw step. That's 10% of your life total when this card is out. And that doesn't even count if you have duplicated effects from either a burn or a draw perspective, so I think that's great. In what do we constantly hear all of our peers across the other content creator communities talking about when it comes to Magic? Rampant card draw. Rampant card draw. Rampant card draw. Over and over and over again. And usually, how do you get to ramp? You have to draw cards. So this card feeds into that. It definitely can give the illusion of, hey, 4 mana guys, I'm tapped out. Squee, you go after me. Enjoy drawing those 2 extra cards, because you don't even get to draw the 2 immediately. It could give give maybe the illusion of it, but then once Nekusar hits, no one's going to be happy about it.
I agree, and I think one of the reasons why you might not have seen this card is until it got, and I didn't own one of these until it got reprinted. It used to be a $10 card, and then Mystery Booster came out and it's like 2 or 3. So
it definitely is not worth it for $10.
I also agree, and I'm also kind of surprised for you because this is what's a hard one for me to put in because it is 4, highly -2. There's other ones that do 3, and you kind of have to wait the turn cycle to come around.
Sure.
I agree with you though, where you can't get to a point where you're like, I have to play something that makes it that at least gives the, like you said exactly right, the illusion of I'm trying to help you, as opposed to this feeding right in. So I think it's really cool. I think it's a card that should be played like more colorless decks potentially that need a little bit more draw. So this is one of the cards I was really excited to open up in Mystery Boosters.
Or all white decks. So, what is your next green card?
So, the next one is, he's a little guy. He might be the Mr. Bubbles of the deck, if you will, now that I think about it. But this card has actually helped me every single time I've ever played it. So, he's kind of creeping around. He kind of looks like someone who might go, so I'm talking about our old pal, Nightscape Familiar.
Yeah.
So, colorless and a black, 1/1, creature zombie. Completely irrelevant here. 41-cent common. Blue spells and red spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And Mr. Combo, the ruling on that is?
It counts for one or the other?
Correct. Thank you very much. So it does not, for those noobs out there, this does not turn Nekusar into a 3-drop. Turns him into a 4-drop. But actually something that's more, that I think is like the reason that separates him from kind of the rest of...
Actually, hold on. The argument you and I had was around split mana.
Right.
I don't know. Does it make Nekusar
I couldn't remember. I was like, for a second, I was like, wait, does this how this work? And then Mr. Combo's going to try to correct me, and then we have to waste 5 minutes. So I was like, I'm not do it. So I looked it up, and it says if it's a last week on Azorius, one of the reasons why Grand Arbiter is so good is because it's 2 separate lines of text. And that's why this one is not as good, but still very relevant. So the thing I like about him, it's a mana reduction, right? On a body. So your commander's coming out a little bit earlier. Like you talked about, there's a lot of blue spells in here, a lot of red board wipes, that sort of thing. But what's actually really saved me a bunch is that this deck sometimes can have an extremely slow start. Right? Sure. Like Rock
really slow.
Yes,
Evolving Wilds Pass.
Yes, exactly. And now that Fabled, this is a deck that will definitely benefit from the new price reduction of Fabled Passage. But the fact that he's a 1/1 who can regenerate himself can kind of save you a lot of like hassle. If someone's coming out of the gates with some sort of crazy Voltron commander, right, that just happens to not be flying, and they're looking for targets, you can leave up that 2 black mana and really not lose anything. So if you just in case, in terms of like looking at this deck to your Xeris, this deck really plays a lot kind of like a do your stuff pass the turn deck. Do you feel that Xeris kind of plays the same way?
Well, so the interesting thing though is just, and this is our play style difference. Right. I like to play a ton of interaction on other people's turns. Right. So I have the cryptic commands. I have the different counter magic. You don't really do that in this deck. So. I have played Xeris where it is very much pass and go, but that's usually because I have 15 or 20 snakes, and it's like, ooh, I could capitalize on this. Let's get down as many things as I can to maybe, buff them. Let's try to hit someone. In this deck, I think you're trying to win on your turn, but you can't really do a lot on your opponent. I think your opponent's turns are more for the don't hurt me, I'm going to talk you off the ledge.
Yeah, exactly. It's all politics in your opponent's turn, and it's all just praying that they don't have some sort of horrible board wipe or infect things, which we'll get to later. So, anyways, Nightscape's Familiar. Again, it's kind of the working man's thing here, but the fact it does regenerate does help a lot.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I was just thinking, I kind of want to put this in my Shirai deck just to confuse people.
No, it doesn't help me at all. What are you talking about?
But no, I think it does exactly what you need.
Right.
Grixis wants cheap costing artifacts and creatures to help get out the bigger, splashier things, because that's what Grixis is, a big, splashy set of colors.
Agreed.
So... All right. Well, my next one is what some would call the budget Wheel of Fortune.
Oh, here we are.
Literally is.
Let's do it.
3, 2, 1.
Reforge the Soul. Even though it's not budget anymore, it's $10.
I know.
That's insanity.
And I'll get to why I really like it. So 3 colorless, red. It's a sorcery. Each player discards his or her hand, then draws 7. Then you can pay a miracle, which is a colorless red. You may cast this card for its miracle cost if it was the first card you drew that turn. So the reason I'm hot on it, though, is because Nekusar is drawing so many cards. And I feel that sometimes when I've seen you play this deck, you draw your 2 or your 3 or your 4, and you're like, shit.
Right. I got nothing.
I got lands or Baleful Strixes, and I don't need those.
Right.
So if you get lucky, and that's how this card works, it's pure luck.
I agree.
So if it ends up being your first card and you have a grip of garbage, you could be like, you know what? I think I just want to pay the extra 2. Let's get 7 plus I'll get my Nekusar trigger still, so I'll still get my extra one from that. And then if I have any other stuff, so I'm still getting my extra value. It's just if it happens to be the first one and I'm sitting on a pile of nothing, I can at least spin the wheel now for only 2 mana, which is pretty great.
I completely agree, and this is one of the only, I think it's the only wheel effect I don't have in either yeast or hops, right? And the reason why is because there are times where you kind of keep a hand and you're like, okay, 3 mana and a mana rock.
Sure.
I'm hoping that this will work. And there's been times before where I'm like, land, something else, nothing, I can't do anything. And then I top deck that Reforge the Soul on turn 4 or 5, knowing that I can't do anything else, like, bend, and now we're off to the races too. So again, like to your point as well, like for if you're casting for 5, it's kind of like the times where that's worked, to your point, is like very late game where this is the 4th time I've wheeled and I have nothing else to do, so you're like, here we go again. But yeah,
or you didn't want to pay $200 for Wheel of Fortune, which is what it is now.
Right. Oh my god. So I can't believe this card's 10. It used to be like 2. So yeah, like there's a lot of wheel and deals. We'll get into. I wanted your opinion on a couple different ways to think about this deck, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But yes, Reforge the Soul, great budget wheel effect. We'll always get you there any way you cast it.
Awesome. Well, and I have one more, and this card I've actually seen done in CEDH. I want to get one for my CEDH deck. We're talking when you need to lock stuff in a vault, Limdual's Vault.
You don't have one of these?
It's almost $9.
Wow. What else?
I'm telling you, man, CEDH.
Didn't we talk?
I think we talked about this in a previous episode, and I think you had one in another deck.
Go figure. My other Grixis deck, Marchesa. What are the odds?
There you go. And so, guys, this one is blue-black instant. Paragraph of text, but it's so good.
It's
and I think I even picked this card last time when I saw it in a deck because it's just so good, and I haven't picked up one yet. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. As many times as you choose, you may pay 1 life, put those cards on the bottom of your library in any order, then look at the top 5 cards of your library, then shuffle your library and put the last card you looked at this way on top in any order. Basically, pay all the life you want to stack the top 5 for it to be perfect, and then that way you can just win the game. And this could be, to Big Tuck's point, turn 4, he's like, ooh, I need a Reforge the Soul bad. He can cast Limdual's Vault at instant speed with that draw trigger. Let me make sure I get Reforge on the top. Maybe it costs me 15 life, maybe it's 30 life, but I was gonna die either way.
I agree. I can't believe this is a real deal CDH card. Like as of recent, because this used to be like a buck.
I mean, I've seen it played on like Playing with Power for the last 8-9 months.
I bet if we went back and looked at that Marchesa episode when it came out a year ago, this was a $2 card. Almost guarantee it.
Year ago?
Is that long? Or I don't know.
No, Marchesa was like maybe 9 months ago, 8 months ago.
Okay, so close. Either way you cut it. So in that
because the biggest thing, think about it, is if you just leave up that 2 mana in CEDH, you're always trying to spend all the mana you can.
Right.
And then it's like, you've tapped out and you have that on the... I've even seen it to where, okay, they're about to win, everyone's tapped out, boom, let me limb duels vault, and I'm going to do it as many times as I can to get the exact cards, and then I'm going to top, put it into hand, and then I'm going to force of will. I mean, I've seen that happen.
Really?
Limb duels vault for 12 to a force of will. Yeah.
Brutal. So, and like, I think this is good. This is a good card early game, like you said, to get that and pay the life to get the land or the mana rock that you need. But once you start drawing 3 or 4 cards a turn, this is how you can set up the top of your deck to be like, and if you have unlimited life, you can effectively no, and you can't do it with this one. Well, if your deck is odd, hypothetically, you can pay any amount of life to organize the top 4 cards in any way as long as it follows it. Wait, no, that's not true.
Well, I mean, you can only pay the life that you have.
Right. I thought there's some gimmick with that, but anyways, it doesn't matter. When you know you're drawing 2 or 3 cards on your next upkeep, or draw step rather.
Trying to think. So if your deck, I think you're right. If your deck number is not a numerical of 5,
right.
If it's 5 or 0, then if you had unlimited life, you could do this any amount you want and constantly get it to whatever combination you want.
Whatever,
right? Pretty close.
So, but like you said, this is one of the few cards that can do something on someone else's turn. And again, when you're drawing 3 or 4 cards, you can really top and figure out which ones you're actually going to get.
100%.
Nailed it.
Cha-ching. All right, guys. Well, that's going to complete that grain build. Now we're going to head over to the board state and hot profile. Traditionally, I would kick this off because that's just the way we do it, but I've been talking so much, but I don't care. I'm still going to do it.
I was going to say, what do you mean traditionally?
And I'm going to talk about a card that is a 100% staple in black decks. Of all colors. Should be in every single one. It is the Black Cyclonic Rift, in my opinion. Sudden Spoiling.
Great card.
This card is backbreaking. Now, it's not so backbreaking that like you lose all your stuff, but it's like, I have the game, now you don't.
Right.
So, colorless black. It's an instant for $3, and it has an ability that reads: until end of turn, creatures target player controls lose all abilities and have base power and toughness 0-2. Well, you might say that's not so bad, but here's why it sucks. Because it has a thing called Split Second.
Yeah! Splitting that second.
Yeah, and as long as this spell is on the stack, players can't cast spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. Woof.
A late addition to the yeast pile, or the hops pile rather. Actually, I had this in spice because I don't know, like whatever.
I feel like that's the card though. Like we talked about how you want to encourage people not to hit you, but once they figure it out, they want to hit you. This is to where it's just like, no, thank you.
I'm pretty sure with this card, I am like 90% positive I have never cast this card.
Really?
Pretty high up there. However,
in this deck or any deck?
I think it's the only copy I own. So, I have seen this card cast against me hundreds of times from former friend of the cast, Magoo, aka Artist Ian. Literally every time he plays his Jaleva deck, he gets this card and Army of the Dead, no questions asked. Literally every single time. Yes, exactly. And this is a really good card. The efficiency of it is incredible. It can stop people from drawing tons of cards, right? Like the limit, it's limitless, right? So to your point, it's mostly a defensive card, but you can do this at any time. So if you're trying to curry favor with a certain person or keep someone in the game, you can stop that. However, to your point, people are going to be swinging. This deck dies to, guess what? Creatures of any shape or variety. So people are going to be swinging at you, and you're going to have to drop this bomb on them.
Yeah, 100%. And this is something, like I said, guys, this is the Black Cyclonic Rift at 1/10 of the price.
Right.
Why it's not more than $3, I don't understand.
I don't either.
Because black's a very popular color.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah. We're bleeping this whole section out right here.
Well, Tuck, why don't you start us off with your first hop?
So this
first hop, yeah.
This is my first one. It's all right. I'm confused too. I'm always confused. I'm just living in a state of constant panic. This card has saved me more than any other card in the deck, and somehow I always draw it. So this is a super underplayed, quote unquote, board wipe that you can do at instant speed.
Okay.
and there's a girl sitting directly on her keister in the artwork.
Oh, yeah.
Is this you?
3, 2, 1.
Aetherize! Also, thank you very much for giving me the bird there.
Oh.
Yes, Aetherize. I think you and I have talked about this card offline a lot. Like, a lot. So, I will read the insides, because I actually can read this, and Mr. Combo, why don't you read the outsides?
All right. Well, and funny thing before I go into the inside or outsides is anyone that is a Command Clash fan over at MTG Goldfish knows Aetherize, because that card haunts that channel.
Really?
With Krim, he's a player and he's always threatening Aetherize, and so they're always like, I don't want to risk it, and then they'll be like, you know what, you don't have it, and then he always has it. He always has Aetherize. It's so funny. Or you'll hit him for 15, and he'll be like, nah, that's okay. And then they're like, oh, he doesn't have it. And then he actually does.
Yes.
So Aetherize, guys. 3 colorless blue. It's an instant uncommon for 83 cents.
Unreal. So, return all attacking creatures to their owner's hand. And then also it says, you can come back once you've learned some manners and figured out how to reconstitute your physical forms. So I'm guessing at some point this was a desert card. This card has saved my ass so many times. And maybe, I think the 3 of us were around the table when it was the 2 of us and former friend of the show, Mikhail. And I think Mr. Combo, I was kind of doing my thing and running around and doing the Nekusar stuff. And you're like, okay, I got this. Like, I got this, guys, don't even worry about it. I think you're playing your elves. And you're like, okay, elf, constant concordant crossroads or something like that, right? You had this huge army. And you're like, okay, Triumph for the Hordes. Big Tuck, you're dead. Squee, you're dead. Mikhail, I'll get you next time. And you turn, I was like, anyone? Anything? All right, here we go. And then I think I won that game anyways. But yes, so I think Evacuation is good as well. It's a very similar card that I think I had in this deck at some point. Must have cut it. But here's the thing that I like the most about this. It's just attacking creatures. And what does this deck literally never do?
Attack.
Never. So do you run this in your decks too, right? Or have started to?
I only run it in my Go deck. Outside of that, I actually don't, because I usually just get Cyclonic Rift.
Sure.
I'm that guy.
Which is in the 99 as well. I think I got this back when it was $5. Are you talking about Cyclonic Rift? I hope not.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
By the way, are you talking about the spouts?
I'm not.
Okay, so quick thought. Aether Spouts is 1 more mana than Aetherize, but then you can put stuff on top or bottom. Do you think the 1 mana extra is better? Or do you think it just is dependent if it's tokens coming at you or legit creatures? Because if it's tokens, then Aetherize is better because it's cheaper. But if it's legit 15 creatures, like my elves, I don't really do a lot of tokens.
Right.
15, 20 elves, you're going to make me stack my next 15, 20 turns potentially, and that feels real bad. Opposed to it being in hand and be able to dump them out real quick.
Agreed, and I think I have them both in here just for redundancy, right? Like, they both effectively accomplish the same thing. Like, this, like we talked about, this deck dies 2 creatures. That's how this deck loses. Like, especially fast ones, the elves, the beasts of the world, and having as many, for me, budget friendly and on the lower CMC side of things figures that out. So I think they're very similar, right? Like, if you're gonna run one, you might as well run the other and Rift, which I do all of them.
Well, that's what I was about to ask. Is if it's like you only had 1 slot, which one are you going for?
In this deck, I would go with Aetherize.
Okay.
Just because it's cheaper, and like, if I'm gonna die to tokens, I'm gonna die and actually, interestingly enough, if they are attacking me with a huge swarm of normal creatures, they're probably gonna have to discard some of them, which might play into some of the other strategies in the deck as well. Oh,
didn't even think about that. Well, I only have 1 more left. It's a very boring card, but I thought I should talk about it because it's a not budget card anymore. That's great. I wanted to talk about Dreadbore.
Oh. $4.
This is just a Rakdos, so that means black-red sorcery at that. Destroy target creature or planeswalker. You know me, I usually go for murder. Love me some murder. But I figured for 2 mana and being able to get a creature or planeswalker, and planeswalkers becoming more relevant,
right?
That's not too bad. But for $3.50, That seems a little high.
I agree with you. I believe this was I got this from Scooty Shuffles. He gave me like a bunch of cards when I first started, and I think this was in there, if I remember correctly. So this also can be Hero's Downfall that costs 3. That's also instant speed. However, until recently, I very much struggled with mana fixing. Until I actually got like the Chromatic Lanterns of the world and whatnot. But yeah, great card, very efficient, way better than Murder. Let's just get that out of the way.
Murder's my manolith.
$3 though. I don't know. You don't have any of these, right?
No.
Not even in Vindies? Not even the Bald Man?
It's too inefficient.
What, 2 destroy a creature?
At sorcery speed?
That deck also only plays on your turn. Looking at you, Dampening Sphere. So yes, no, it's really good. I mean, it's really not much to say. I guarantee there's been cards that have been printed since then that are better than this in some way, shape, or form, right? Like some sort of more efficient board wipe, like a Toxic Deluge would probably be better in this slot, but I haven't. And again, it's fun because this card originally came out in old Ravnica, so a lot of times when people are like, wait, what is this? It's like, yeah, it's got the Recto Signet right there.
Cool. Well, you got 2 more.
Okay.
Hit us up with some knowledge.
Right, so number 1,
not a knowledge pool though.
the best. So number one on here, when this card first got spoiled, I didn't realize that this was a freaking banger in this deck. And also probably the best creature in the deck. We're talking about our pal coming out of Amonkhet, Archfiend of Infear. So 3 colorless, black, flying. Whenever you cycle or discard another card, put a -1/-1 counter on each creature your opponent's control. Cycling 2 doesn't really mean much. So
I'm cutting.
You're gonna cut this guy, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually did counting. You only have 12 total cards in the deck that can have you cycle or discard. And that is stretching, because some of them you would like to point at your opponents. So
fair enough. So the times that I have played this, though, I like it because it is a blocker and a creature that does something that'll eat up not necessarily rhinos, but beasts of the world. If you draw it early game, you don't need it, you can bin it. I've tried to get as many of these wheel cards, and maybe we'll talk about this more in the bottling section, but this card, every time, it's one of those ones where I know it seems like it shouldn't work on paper, but every time I play it, it saves my ass 100% of the time. I don't know what it is.
Look, I loved it for your cycle deck. Oh man, just wrecks.
Oh, it's brutal on that deck. It's unbeatable.
Amazing. And I would say if you had more effects that were draw a card, discard a card, a lot of those kind of I was going to say trash for treasure, but that's not it. What am I thinking of?
Looting, yeah.
Looting. If you had more looting effects in here, then I would be fine. Because I think for you to have one specific card in that is a fringe type of effect, it's not like these two things happen and it's like, oh, I got this kind of lockdown, or I got this special thing. It's like, oh, I could do this and maybe throw a -1 counter or 8 -1 counters. You just never know.
So Mr. Combo, you played me at my own game. I am pretty sure I am thinking of playing this in my cycling deck. And maybe that's the value trade in it.
Oh,
I might have just confused myself on that. Whoopsie daisies. So moving along, I am going to talk about another card that costs 1 less than this, that accomplishes the very same thing. And this card is very near and dear to everyone here at CMD Tower's heart. We're talking about one of our favorite spoilers, the Silentists of Arbiters.
Ooh.
Oh, so good.
It's absurd. So Silent Arbiter is a 4-drop artifact creature construct coming in now thanks to us. And this is really
specifically
the only reason this is not a $5 card. $1.52.
Also,
no more
thanks,
than
Mr.
one creature. Yes, absolutely.
I got one of these in my Akiri deck now.
Booyah. So no more than one creature can attack each combat. No more than one creature can block each combat. Guess what? I'm not attacking in this deck, which we'll get into in the bottle capping. And I have a lot of things in here which makes you not want to attack me for X, Y, and Z, propaganda and the like. So a lot of times this deck just completely stymies stormed or token decks And earlier I made mention how this deck does really struggle with creature decks, but the one it struggles with most is go wide decks, right? You can only run so many board wipes, you can only run so many Aetherize and Rifts and whatnot, and this deck just slows those to a crawl, not even attacking you, attacking other people. That's one thing if Reese comes in for 1 damage a turn, it's an entire another story if 40 elves come in every turn. I got this back, I think I actually opened this in China, if I remember correctly, and this, so 100%, no doubt in my mind, whenever I play this card, it does frickin' work.
Yeah, I mean, here's the cool thing about this card now that especially it's $1.50. There's zero reason if you are in a deck that does not want to attack, why you should not be running this in there.
Agreed.
I will say there are maybe some exceptions, like this would be a banger in my Atraxa Planeswalker Super Friends deck.
Sure.
I don't run it though because I run so few creatures and I have so many great Planeswalkers that now it's, do I really cut Academy Rector for a Silent Arbiter? Probably not.
Right.
Am I going to cut a Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, for a Silent Arbiter? Probably not.
No,
so
I will not.
I would say unless your deck is so tuned that it's just like you struggle to even put an amazing card in there that maybe comes out, you should always slot in a Silent Arbiter and maybe even go to 34 or 33 lands to put in a Silent Arbiter because the thing just shuts stuff down. Now, granted, it is an artifact, so it is easier to get rid of, and it's a creature. I mean, if this was an enchantment, woof.
Woof, indeed. So apologies about the Archfiend for slip up, I think. I honestly don't remember because I've only played this deck like once in the last year. So anyways, but Silent Arbiter, I can tell you for a fact every time it comes out, it works.
Awesome. Now that's going to wrap up the hot profile. Then we're going to head over and let Big Tuck keep talking and do how he's going to win the game in the yeast package. So Big Tuck, you did a lot of talking. Give us your first how you win the game card.
So back in my day, there was a Planeswalker now who is effectively ubiquitous with the game, but before he was only a legend, spoken in far corners. And I'm also pretty sure we talked about this card during your Xeris deck. However, this card has won me the game pretty much every time I played it, and it's a little bit of a puzzle, if you will. And in that case, we're talking about our boys, Teferi's Puzzle Box.
This card upsets the table no matter when it's played.
Time. 100%
oh my gosh, it's the best. Coming in at a cool $9, Teferi's Puzzle Box is a 4-drop artifact. At the beginning of each player's draw step, I'm going to do that one more time, just make sure. At the beginning of the draw step, that player puts the cards in his or her hand on the bottom of his or her library in any order, and then draws that many cards. So, this is how this has always run out, in my experience. I'm looking around. Table's tapped out, right? No removal, nothing. No counterspells, likely, all that jazz, right? Play Teferi's Puzzle Box. Groans across the thing. And then people are like, oh, hey, here's this disenchant. Here's this Crush Counterband. Here's this Vandal Blast. Everything that they ever wanted and dreamed of and they could possibly even hope for goes right to the bottom of the library. So usually, again, we're playing this deck to have people draw cards. And usually at their disadvantage as opposed to mine. And this deck does it the most efficiently, the most backbreakingly, and, if I may, the most upsettingly. And that's why it's one of my favorite cards in the entire deck.
Well, and I think Teferi's Puzzle Box is one of those cards that you strategically play at the right time. I even think in my Xeris deck, unless I have Xeris out, I'm not playing it.
Yes.
And I think in this deck, unless you have Nekusar out, and throwing it out there that you think maybe you could kill someone off of it, you're probably not going to play it because it is subject to artifact removal. And you're not playing any counter magic that I can see.
I got one guy.
You got one.
Forbid.
Opposed to like my Xeris deck where I have I think 6 counter spells in the deck, I'm more comfortable playing it where I'm not going to outright win the game. Plus with Xeris I just make snakes, so it's not even like the snakes just win the game or one shot someone unless there's the Perforos and all that kind of stuff. So I love the card. I love that I got printed in Mystery Boosters.
Did it? Okay, great.
Yeah, was able to pull a couple out of there. Oof. I think even got a foily one.
Ooh.
It's an amazing card, and I do think this is maybe for its price point. That's probably why we don't see it. But once again, we always complain about how white can't draw cards. it's not really card draw, but sometimes you just get those dumb hands that you can't do anything with, and a puzzle box can give you a fresh grip and give you the illusion of card draw.
Yes, exactly. I wish it was discard and then draw that many, but for 4 mana, that would be absolutely ridiculous. People who play Teferi and those sort of things, they know this card, so beyond that, there's not a whole lot to talk about. So, Mr. Combo, what do you got for your first Yeast Way?
A card that I feel like I've heard about, never seen played, don't own one. It kind of feeds into the discard. We're talking about a beautiful raven-haired lady and her caress.
Yes, we are.
3, 2, 1.
Liliana's Caress.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So since I already did a lot of talking, I'm going to have you do some talking. It's a colorless black enchantment. Read us some text.
Whenever an opponent discards a card, that player loses 2 life. This might hurt less if you don't fight so hard, but I doubt it.
That sounds a little rapey.
There's a lot of... This whole mind magic stuff has a lot of gray area into it. So it seems like some people might be willing. It seems like some might not be. Also... $4. Also, thank you, Tice. I think I got 6 of these from those boxes, so keep going up in price.
Well, and the thing I like about this card, and actually why I picked it, because you don't have that many wheels. You have a fair amount.
Right.
But what I think you're gambling with, if I may, with this card, is that you're forcing your opponents to draw so many cards and take loss of life with Nekusar. End of turn, I'm still stuck with 9. I got to now discard 2. Well, now you're going to lose another 4. I'm gonna hurt you in the beginning, and I'm gonna hurt you at the end.
I referenced this earlier. I think there are, and I have one more effect that deals with discard in my bottle capping that I had in this deck, took it out, sold it, and now it's gone up in a gazillion prices, which we'll get to. So do you think, I feel like this deck, because people are drawing a lot of cards, could play more into the discard theme. However, I'm just worried that if you put too much in of at the beginning of each player's upkeep, they discard a card and that sort of stuff. Unless you draw into one of these 2 cards or 3 cards, or whatever I have in the deck, it's dead draws,
dead
right?
Card. Yeah.
I think Liliana's Caress, there's a bunch of different cards that do this sort of ability, but I think Liliana's Caress gives you the most value because it's a 2-drop. It's an enchantment, hard to remove. And 2 damage for each card is pretty good. And if I remember correctly, it's lose life, not deal damage. So for me, this kind of fits the sweet spot of CMC. There is a handful of effects in this. This will deal damage, and worst case, or best case, if someone eats an enchantment removal on this, it's gonna save something else.
You have way worse ones that you would rather stick around.
Indeed.
And so, and here's the thing: if 2 things were different on this card, it would make it a lot worse. If it said that player takes 2 damage.
Yes,
that would suck because a glacial chasm prevents you from losing or prevents you from winning the game because you can't do anything to it.
Right.
And then the second thing, if it said whenever an opponent discards cards, then they lose 2 life. Then it's also significantly worse because it doesn't matter how many they lose; they're only going to lose 2. So the card's perfect, and that CMC 2 is a sweet spot for this card.
I agree completely. And again, there are times where you'll be able to do a big draw spell and then wheel everyone, so people will have 14 in hand.
Sure.
Not anymore, because you're dead.
Well, what is your last Yeast card?
So, Squee, take your Elvish Ear and scoot you into this one.
Listening.
He is Yawgmoth's reward to me. I shall kill him 100 times a day. Corvax, referencing Squee, Goblin to Bob in this timeline, to Urtai, who I'm pretty sure is the commander we talked about 2 weeks ago.
And I'm pretty sure we're sharing this card. 3, 2, 1.
Phyrexian Tyranny. Let go. I don't know how it's pronounced. We pronounced the first part wildly different.
Phyrexian Tyranny.
Okay, so we do agree. It's Phyrexian, right?
Oh yeah, it's totally Phyrexian.
Okay, perfect.
How else would it be say?
Phyrexian.
Oh.
It's the same thing, right?
Hey, it's like tomato. Do you want to be fancy? You say Phyrexian. If you're a hillbilly, you say Phyrexian.
Love it. So this card's $3 now. I read which is kind of surprising. So I read a reprint. I read the hardest part. So Mr. Combo, please take it away.
All right. Well, this card costs Grixis to cast. It's a blue, black, red. It's an enchantment. It is a rare from Planar Chaos.
This one's from Plane Shift, I think.
Plane Shift.
Yes. Yeah. Close. Same. The first printing of Flame Tongue Kavu.
So this is a weird because this will hurt you too. So whenever a player draws a card, that player loses 2 life unless he or she pays 2. So the challenge here, ladies and gents, is technically Big Tuck would lose 4 on his draw step, but his opponents would lose 6. So you just better hope you got a higher life total.
I made the mistake when I first ran this deck of just running this out as soon as I possibly can.
Oh, no.
Yes, exactly. And then a friend of the show, Scooty Shuffles, back when we were playing, I think we were playing the night before he got married. We were playing with him and his cousin, who was kind of new to it, and is another guy that kind of introduced him to the game. I was like, all right, Phyrexian Tyranny, go. And they're like, okay, I guess I'll pay 2. I was like, great, I'll draw. They're like, so you're going to take 2 for that, right? Pardon me. The card. Oh, this is it. So this is...
Okay, can I take this back,
Yeah,
please?
I will take the drawback. This is, in my opinion, the biggest high-risk, high-reward card in the entire deck. There are times where it used to be a little more commonplace when we would draw games, and that doesn't really happen anymore. Because of this card, I have drawn the game playing this deck no fewer than 3 times.
Wow.
Because it just worked out that everyone had the right amount of cards in their hand when I wheeled, and I wasn't paying attention, and then I had the right amount of cards in my hand too, that killed all of us at the table at the same time after a Winds of Change or something like that.
That's amazing. I mean, this is a card... Gosh.
It's hard. It's hard.
Yeah. I mean, I would almost say this is a spice because of the possibility you're going to kill yourself off of it like you have. But, if you have a way to make sure your life total doesn't change, I know you don't run anything like that in the deck, but say a big metal dude.
Empyrean...
Platinum Empyrean.
There it is.
So, yeah, and that's maybe a direction you could even take the deck in, to where it's all symmetrical kill effects, but then I got, like, Platinum Angel and Platinum Imperium in here, and it's like, hopefully I just get into them, and then I can plop them, and then everyone's taking all of this damage, because you got so many of these Phyrexian Tyranny effects that they're draining, and it's just like, oh, I'm fine.
Is your last card a land by chance?
It is not.
Okay, so we're not talking about this because we don't need to. The best card in the entire deck is a land called...
And Squee's favorite card.
Glacial Chasm. Remember. Is by far and away the best card in the entire deck. I have won every game I've ever played it on. And we don't need to go into details because I don't need, what would you say, Pat Nat? I don't need him yelling at me again through the internet. It's too good.
Yeah, and if you guys aren't familiar with Glacial Chasm, guys, basically just says creatures you control can't attack, which he doesn't care about. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you. He does care about that. And it has a small thing of cumulative upkeep, pay 2 life. So first upkeep, it's 2 life, then it's 4, then it's 6, then it's 8, then it's 10, then you're probably dead after that. But hopefully your opponents are dead first.
If you're listening, Watsy, throw it on the ban list. Just do it.
No!
Just do it. Don't even think about it. Just do it.
I don't even think it's a piece of Magic history, to be honest with you, which is very exciting.
Never been a part of Magic.
Well, my last card for Yeast is an interesting card. So I've never seen you attack in this deck, but I figured it's in here because you do some attacks, but it sounds like you never attack. So I don't know why it's in here, but I love this card and I don't see it played enough. You're cutting it, I assume.
Indeed I am, sir.
We're talking about
Whispering Madness.
Whisper to you. Hey, little mama, let me whisper in you.
Oh God, is that a Ja Rule song?
I have no idea. I think I saw it on a Vine once.
Oh, they're about to say a TikTok. I was like, whoa, you're low for that.
I'm not friend of the show, Nathan Lane, a 32-year-old man who's living on TikTok right now.
So Whispering Madness, guys, is an extremely underplayed card, hence its price at 68 cents. 2 colorless, Dimir, that is blue-black. It's a sorcery, and it's a rare. And it says each player discards his or her hand, then draws cards equal to the greatest number of cards a player discarded this way. It's basically Windfall, but it has an amazing effect. You may cipher this, and cipher is a mechanic we do not see like ever.
It was printed in one run, I think in Ravnica somewhere.
Bring cipher back, bring banding back. I'm calling it.
we need more flanking.
It says you may exile this spell card encoded on a creature you control. Whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player, its controller may cast a copy of the encoded card without paying its mana cost. So, the interesting thing I'd like to know about the Cipher rule text is it just says, then you may exile this spell. So does that mean as it resolves it exiles, or when it's on the stack, you can cipher it onto the creature?
So I think it resolves.
And instead of going to the graveyard, you exile it instead.
Right. Or you can choose to, right? You may.
Sure. So I love this card. I used to run this in my Ydra's Maelstrom Wielder deck because he was always wanting to swing.
Absolutely.
Throw this on there, and I'm just constantly digging through the library trying to get to my win con. In your deck, now that I've heard more about it, it doesn't make any sense at all. Probably does need to be cut. But I think it's a card that should get played more. And once again, if you wanted to take the deck in another direction, I am going to start doing the, hey, please don't hurt me, but then you maybe have like one unblockable creature like a ninja or something.
Right.
Could be a cool thing to throw Madness on.
So I will say I take back the Archfiend of Infear. I did one time land this on Archfiend, and it was nuts because it's a flyer, right? However, that's the only combat trick I have in the entire game, and people are like, okay, cool, swords. This whole thing's over, right? So yeah, I am gonna cut this. It's a card I really want to like, and.
You have a home for it somewhere.
It's in my mill deck with Mirko Voss. Oh, because you can get it on him or any of the other unblockable stuff, and deck piece by piece by piece by piece. So it's a great card. I really like it. I love the design. Just isn't sitting right in this one for me.
That's fine. Yeah. That's fine. All right. Well, that's going to wrap up the East package, guys. Now we're going to head over to the Spicy Meat Cabal. I'll start this off, and I think me and Tuck may be on the same card here. It's one from Eldraine.
Because that narrows it to 2.
Roll the dice.
Is it better? Okay, all right, I'll give you a hint. Is it better than a 6-drop artifact that you and I used to play rampant for no reason?
That is a weird hint.
I don't know what 6-drop artifact you would talk about. Let's gamble it.
Do it.
3, 2, 1.
Midnight Clock. Yes, that's the one. Absolutely. I almost went Folio Fancies here, but that card actually is really a Yeast card, I think.
Well, and it's kind of funny. You have Psychic Corrosion in here. That's a Yeast card. Magus of the Wheel. That's a Hopper Yeast card. We'll talk Party Jace.
We'll be talking about Magus of the Wheel here in a minute. But like the to your point, the Psychic Corrosion one, I don't have much of a mill strategy in here. That's the only card that mills. So that's it.
Yeah, but you got to think about it. It's the same thing, kind of like with my Xeris deck. If you're making people wheel through their deck and they're milling at the same time, they're going through their deck twice as fast. So they no longer have a 100-card deck; they have a 50-card deck.
Fair point. But again, I've also seen Nekusar mill strategies too, and you can swap out like 4 cards in here and turn it directly into that. And actually now like 6.
Midnight Clock, 2 colorless blue. It's an artifact from Eldraine at 49 cents. Big Tuck, why don't you read its first half and I'll read the bottom paragraph.
Thank you very much. All right, so Armageddon Clock, sorry, got my brains there. Midnight Clock will tap for blue, which actually is one of the reasons why I really like it, to be honest with you. What did we just talk about? I need something at all that will produce mana for me. And then 2 colors in a blue, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. And then at the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. And when I first saw this card, I thought it was your upkeep. No.
It's everyone's. So, when the 12th hour counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand, graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards, exile Midnight Clock. The reason I really like it is it is a mana rock,
Right.
and you need those. And it's not the best. Technically, Manalith would be better.
How dare you? How dare you?
But it gives you It gives you a mana sink, which can be relevant later games. You should always have a way to sink your mana.
Right.
And then if you do get to 12, hopefully you have milled, you've cycled, you've wheeled, you've done all these things and used maybe some removal. Maybe you had to Aetherize or Cyclonic Rift. And 12th hour hits. It's all going back in. And I feel like that's going to be something that's going to happen. And people are going to be like, "Oh no, I totally forgot about it."
Right.
'Cause you're just going to be over there just ticking up your dice.
So when I think I've only played this card once, and it went something like this, where it was like, I play it, and people are like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, here you go," and they look and see like the wall of text, like, "Okay, it's a mana rock, cool, whatever," right? And then I'm like, "Okay, tick it up, tick it up, tick it up." And they're like, "What are you ticking up?" It's like, "No, it's nothing." You know, just wait for Cinderella to turn back into a pumpkin, if you will. Tick it up, tick it up, tick it up, and then someone blew it up like in the 11th hour. So
I might have been in that game.
I played it a handful of times, and it was a recent one. Again, with the situation that we live in, it's hard to play like a zillion decks. So we can cut this out if you want. Do you not remember Armageddon Clock?
No, I do.
You and I both thought that card was fire, and in reality, it's trash fire. Complete cards are worthless.
I think I had that in my Atraxa deck for the longest time as an alternate win card.
It's gonna work at some point.
It's gonna get there.
And for those who are still listening, go look up Armageddon Clock. We're not even gonna get into it. So yes, but like Midnight Clock is one of those ones where again, ramps you and does the things.
It's the perfect spice card because you could cut it for a more efficient ramp or a more efficient way to get your graveyard back into your library, but it fits it fringely and it's under 50 cents, so it's hard to say no.
Right. There will be a deck for this.
All right. Well, now we're going to head over to the bottle capping. And as a reminder, it's going to be Big Tech's and I's recommendations and cuts to the deck that are going to be under 5, under 50, and a no budget recommendation. We just can't talk about Tolarian Academy, even though it's banned. So, Big Tech, why don't you start? You got an under 5. What are you going to cut? What would you ideally add?
So I'm going to cut Whispering Madness, as we talked about, right? Like, I think it's a good card. I think it's really cool. Windfall is
just not for this deck.
It's just not the right fit, right? Like, I'll find something else to put it in. So I'm actually going to cut it for a card which is supposedly really good on itself. And if you guys remember, a week ago, we talked about how Nekusar is, in fact, a wizard. So Riptide Laboratory is kind of a good way to protect them. I want to talk about Kess, Descendant Mage.
Really?
Yeah. And here's why. Colorless and Grixis, so 1 colorless, blue, black, red, flying, 3/4. It's a mythic. During each of your turns, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your graveyard. If a spell casts this way, would you put in your graveyard exile instead? So I know it sounds crazy, right? However, I will tell you this. There have been multiple games that I've played this where it's like, oh, I can win right now. I have 2 wheels in my hand, and I have the mana to cast them both. But I can't win because as soon as I cast the 1 wheel, it draws it out, dumps the other wheel into my graveyard, and goes from there. I have 0 recursion in this deck. I have not a single piece of recursion in this deck, period, right? And this will get you, this can cast your 1-drops, this can cast your 2 or 3 drops in a row. It keeps the mana, it keeps the CMC on the same level. And most importantly, it's a 3/4 flyer. So those Drakes that are coming in, you can at least jump one of them. It also is kind of a don't attack me sort of card.
So the only issue that I think you're going to have is you already have a commander that's has a reputation for being degenerate. And Kessa's reputation is very degenerate. And so I think, I mean, heck, I run her in my CEDH deck because she is degenerate, and I can just start taking infinite extra turns, casting them, and then doing it back out of my graveyard. So I think try it, because I know you have one.
I actually don't, but they're also...
No, like, it came in the Wizard Precon.
I didn't get those. Oh, I got the cat. I got the cat and the dragon.
Don't you feel like a fool?
Oh, believe you me. Yeah, I do.
So I think I might have an extra one because it also came out in the old or Modern Horizons.
Right, which again, as we've talked about many times, you open like they're going out of style.
Yes.
So again, it's like I don't.
I could give you one to try. Yep. I just don't think it's going to do what you want.
But to your point, if it does eat up a removal, so if I play this turn 4 and people are like, oh my gosh, what's it gonna do? We gotta get rid of that. That eats up a removal that could be targeted at Nekusar. So it's like sort of a soft backup commander, but I only run a handful of creatures in the deck, so just having something that can do something makes it feel better. And like I said, a lot of times that I've been able to win, I couldn't because I was too busy drawing cards and wheeling myself. So this guy gets you out there.
Well, so for me, I'm actually going to cut the Archfiend of Ifnir. I already told you kind of why. You only have 12 total ways to make your opponents or yourself discard. So I know your playstyle. You like big splashy, and you like value. And you've talked about this card to me, and you know what it is, and it's just under $5. Just under. It's a Locust God.
This was,
I don't know why you don't have this in here.
It's a fool's errand, 100%.
4 colorless is it, blue-red, legendary creature god. It's a flyer. Whenever you draw, and it's a 4/4, and it's a mythic. And it says, whenever you draw a card, create a 1/1 blue and red insect creature token with flying and haste. 2 colorless is it, draw a card, then discard a card, so you're still doing Nekusar stuff. And then when he dies, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. So even if they try to get rid of it, it just keeps coming back. I think, and you have one because it came in the new precons.
I am looking at it right now in that box. I know exactly where it is.
So I think that's something to where you go up technically 1 CMC, but the card by itself in a silo does more for your deck than Ifnir does if you get the magical cards to hand. But then if you think about it, you get those magical cards to hand, Locust God's still going to work and still do stuff.
I think, and as we discussed on your Xerus deck, this also is effectively a backup commander in this, right? Like, we talked about in that deck, if Xerus gets killed over and over and over again, eventually it's like, because Xerus costs 5 as well, right?
I think so.
Right. So, like, again,
the parallels.
Look at that. Or the parallel lives, if you will. Blasted. So, anyways, I completely agree with you. And, like, I think I literally bought a version of this to put into this deck, and then in a rampage of some sort of alcohol, made its own Locust God deck because I just had it lying around. But yes, I agree with you 100%. Like, this card does work in this deck. Gives you the blockers, the 6 CMC, like, you cast Nekusar, they kill it, you're like, great, Locust God. Where's your removal now?
Yeah.
Peasants.
Well, because literally you made the point earlier of why you want the Kess, to where it's like, well, I got 2 wheels in hand and I can do all this stuff. Well, what good are the wheels if Nekusar's not out? Oh, well, Locust God. And, okay, instead of doing it for this, I'll just make 13 Locusts, and they have haste, and I'll kill you.
Right.
So
I'm on board, and like I said, I'm going to crack these packs sometime this weekend. Coming in hot.
Well, why don't you come in hot with your under $50 cut Nad?
So we didn't talk about it, and this card is extremely cute, but I just think it's not where we're trying to go. So I'm actually going to cut Ob Nixilis, the Hate Twisted.
Interesting. Okay, keep going.
I can hear and understand your frustration. But I think that there's other cards that do this better, right? So Ob Nixilis, the Hate Twisted is an uncommon legendary planeswalker from War. I guarantee I open like 6 of. 3 colors, black, legendary planeswalker Nixilis. Whenever an opponent draws a card, it deals 1 damage to that player. Comes with 5 loyalty, -2, destroy target creature. Its controller draws 2 cards.
So, I'd like to comment. Why isn't it legendary planeswalker Ob Nixilis? Is Ob like a thing?
It could be his street name, if you will.
Oh, I like it. Or maybe his Chinese New Year animal. Maybe they meant to do ox, but they went Ob.
They got mixed up in the translation. So I think this card is extraordinarily cute, and I think it's like, oh, look at this Nekusar deck. I have this like overcosted planeswalker, but that's really what it is, right? I have a lot of effects in here that do this exact same ability that costs way less. And also, it has the upside of like killing a creature and drawing 2 cards.
And making them draw 2 cards. Because it's controller, and then you could ding them for 2.
However, as we've talked about before, that could just draw them the card that they need to win, right? So,
but you gotta risk it for the biscuit when you're in a wheel deck.
If it was a big risk it kind of move, then I'd feel a little bit better of it. So I'll have this line around just in case I twist, in case, I twist it, if you will. So we talked about how there is a little bit of discard in this, right? And Liliana's Caress has a great value. The card I mentioned earlier that I thought I had in this deck, but I didn't, and now it's $11, which pisses me off, is Waste Not. So, colorless to black, enchantment. This card is banana hammocks.
Absurd.
If I may.
Yeah.
So whenever an opponent discards a creature card, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Blocks. What do I need in this deck? Blockers. Whenever an opponent discards a land card, add black. What do I need in this deck? Mana. Whenever an opponent discards a non-creature, non-land card, draw a card. Always helpful. So if you look at the rate of what this card does for you that you get back, even if you, and I think this is kind of I can see your similar argument with Archfiend of Infear, where like I don't have that much stuff, but a -1/-1 counter on a discard is fine, right? Whatever. A card or 2/2 zombie on a discard when their hand is full at their end step is infinitely more valuable, right? Especially after a board wipe, especially after like an Aetherize or something along those lines. So the fact that this card comes in at 2 mana, lowers the curve off of where we were, and has this value when I have these monster, 14 card Wheel of Fates. I play this in my Angie deck, and this card has just won me the game because I do this and then do a wheel, and I'm like, all right, I have 17 mana, 14 zombios, and I can go off into the other thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that I look at a Nekusar deck to where it differs from Xeris wants the big wheels to get a bunch of snakes at once. Right. Nekusar is very drips and drabs, 2, 3, 4 cards at a time, because you don't have all the wheels in your deck. You got a lot, you don't have them all. And I think with Waste Not, you need more ways. Like, Waste Not is a amazing card in my Nicol Bolas deck, but I'm also making people discard during my turn, not during their turns. And I think if your payoff, quote unquote, is, well, if they're in step, they're going to have to maybe discard a card or two. I get it. It's kind of the same argument with Liliana's Caress, but Liliana's Caress actually drains their life. This just draws you cards or maybe gets you mana that you can't use or a blocker. If you had one around, which it doesn't sound like you do, I'd say try it out, but I would not buy one for this deck.
Had 5 of these. 5 Waste Nots in a binder, and I gave them all out when they were $2.
Well, what
a fool. So
I know. See, that's why when we find these bulk rares, we shouldn't just be giving them out willy-nilly.
You never know. So anyways, like I said, Omnixilence, kind of cute. I have effects that do that, but better. And I think Waste Not's going to get me where I'm going. So what do you got for your under 50?
Oh, I'm also cutting Omnixilus Reignited.
What?
Because the other one is just better than this.
Oh, he's my favorite, though.
Yeah, but come on. 3 colorless, black, legendary Planeswalker Nixilus. They got that down pat. Comes in with 5 loyalty, also similar, but he has 3 effects instead of just 1. +1, you draw a card and you lose a life. Sure. -3, destroy target creature. Sure. -8 is appealing, but I don't think it's going to happen. Target opponent gets an emblem with whenever a player draws a card, you lose 2 life. Basically, if you're saying that Hate Twisted is overcosted, yet Hate Twisted directly works with your Planeswalker, then Reignited is just not a good card for the deck.
I can see it. I do like the fact that he can do. I do like the fact that he can help you as well by drawing cards out the gates. Like, so if I can't have the Nekusar mana, or if I don't feel comfortable casting them, I can put them down. It's kind of innocuous. I can see the argument. I also this is a pet card of mine because it's a black Planeswalker that's under $1.
Well, and the card I'm going to recommend, I don't think you're going to like, and I don't think you're going to want to do it. But if you have one, I think this just makes your deck infinitely better. And you do usually say 10 mana spells should kind of win you the game.
Sure.
Jin Gataxis Core Augur. So 8 colorless blue, sitting at about $18. Legendary creature Praetor. It's a mythic. It's a 5/4. It has flash. Great. Being able to interact on other people's turns is awesome. At the beginning of your end step, draw 7 cards. Works great for you. Get more of your deck. Each opponent's maximum hand size is reduced by 7. You want to get your opponents to be forced to discard? You put a Jin Kataxis in your deck, flash that bad boy out when you have your Waste Not or your Liliana's Caress. You can have people literally, my turn, I die. Their turn, they die. Their turn, they die.
It's so expensive. That's my only concern. And the only other thing that I worry with this sort of effect is that there are a couple of those symmetrical effects that this could come and bite you in the ass because you don't have a choice about drawing 7, right? Granted, there's only a couple. I'll grant you that. Sure. So I don't have one of these lying around actually, but it would be good to have for the collection, not the collective, if you will.
And if you wanted to go more into that discard theme, if you had a Jin Kataxis, then you could get a Bone Miser, put him in the deck, because then when you're discarding cards, you're getting tons of value from your wheel and your instep. I thought about the Bone Miser runaround. It's just so much better in Anji, and I think I only have 1 or 2 copies of it. So, and I think it's expensive. I think so. I think it's like $5-8 maybe. And I have one in the cycling deck, which was your recommendation, and FYI, been paying off. All right. Well, hey, we're at the no budget thing. What do you got? Right. How are you going to not break the bank because you always disappoint me?
I will. Well, sort of. I'm going to cut Magus to the wheel. Fine card. We've kind of talked about this before, how it's very slow. I have no way to accelerate it. I don't have any haste on that stuff. So I'm going to cut it for another wheel card, which we are all very familiar with. And since you told me that I had no budget in this deck, I went with this one. So I went with Wheel and Deal. Wheel and Deal. So obviously the inclusion here is Wheel of Fortune. I'm never going to own one of those. So Wheel and Deal is a very interesting card. 3 colorless and a blue, an instant. Any number of target opponents each discard their hand, then draw 7.
Oh, okay.
And then you draw 1 card.
Real cute.
It's very cute. It's extraordinarily cute, if you will. So, like I said, I don't have that much symmetrical effects. I think I have like Phyrexian Tyranny and then Spiteful Visions, right? Which both, especially Spiteful Visions, is just Nekusar Part 2, but it hurts you.
Yeah.
And there have been times where I have lost the game or drawn it because I wheel and just kill myself because I have a massive grip, right? So, Wheel and Deal gives you the opportunity to just target your opponents. Right? So imagine if you have like this and a Phyrexian Tyranny on board. They're drawing 7, so they're taking 14 or paying, 14 as well, I guess. Which they're not going to be able to do if you do it at instant speed. It's kind of like this is like another spice card to some extent, where it doesn't really win you the game unless it's like the perfect situations. And it's when I checked it earlier today, it was $7. According to what I'm on my research right now, it is over 13, which is bonkers. So Wheel of Fortune is great. Wheel and Deal, I think, is a little more fun, right? If you wanted to take this deck off to where it's like less tuned, more group draw stuff, that sort of thing, this really has a home. And since I'm not going to ever buy a Wheel of Fortune, this kind of does a decent-ish sort of.
Should have got one when I was buying them for $60.
Huh?
You should have been buying them with me last year when they were like 60.
I should have been buying them when I could get them in the gold. Gold border for 5. So Wheel and Deal is where it's at. The problem with Nekusar too is like he is one of those commanders that is so oppressive. A lot of the high end cards are just like win more, if you will. Expensive. So I want to do something a little different here. But next to the wheel, too slow, not too sweet, if you will. And Wheel and Deal at least has the instant clause into it as well.
Yeah, Wheel and Deal is fine. I actually think Wheel and Deal is probably better for my Xeris deck. Being able to get 21 snakes that I can actually do stuff with, versus you. If you had a bunch of tokens, like they're more for blockers, and then maybe by happenstance you could kill someone with them. I don't know. It's fine. But you said you wanted to do something different with your deck. For some reason, I have made this my personal challenge with you.
God. Is this another companion? Jeez.
Yeah, it is. So here's the thing, though.
Okay.
Brea, you didn't really like. We did the companion. It's still degenerate, but I felt like you had more fun playing it with that restriction. And I think you had more fun, like having to take out a lot of those easy cards.
Right.
And it's like, okay, now what artifacts are left that I didn't already put in? And so with Nekusar is another deck that I don't feel like you want to play that often. I think you like it a little bit more than Brea.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But it's still not one that you're like, yeah, Nekusar time.
To your point, it is another Brea, another Perforos, another Prosh, where it's like, if I want to win quick, and we only have one game left, I'm either going to win or I'm going to get knocked out in the first 4 turns.
Yep. So I'm going to cut Niv Mizzet Firemind.
Yep.
Mainly because it doesn't fit my theme, but also I think the other Niv Mizzet is better. Just the Trip Blue, Trip Red. Because that one still says whenever... I think it's whenever...
That is whenever he... damn it. There's a reason why I don't... There's a reason why I don't have him in there.
So anyway, so this guy, while Tuck looks at a legendary creature, dragon, wizard, it's a 4/4, flying. Whenever you draw a card, Niv Mizzet the Firemind deals 1 damage to any target, tap, draw a card. The other one says...
Oh, I got it. So this is the reason why. Whenever Niv Mizzet Draco Genius deals damage to a player, you may draw a card.
Yeah, that's not the one I was thinking of.
Oh, the
one
new
I'm
one,
thinking of is Perun.
That one, the Trip Blue one.
So
whenever you draw a card,
Perun
it deals
is
damage
Trip
to
Blue,
target.
Trip Red. Yeah, whenever you draw a card, he deals damage to any target, and then whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery, you draw a card.
Instead of... The thing that worries me about this is the trips.
Your deck's trip even. I think you're fine. So anyways,
I know you're gonna put in, and I'm interested because you're on this companion kick all of a sudden. So
all right, so we're talking about Obosh, the Prey Piercer. So this is 3 colorless, and you're worried about pips. So it's hybrid Rakdos. Legendary creature, Hellion Warrior, the 3/5, coming in at a cool 41 cents.
Backbreaking.
And it says, if a source you control with an odd convert mana cost would deal damage to a permanent or player, deals double that damage to that permanent or player instead. So it could be in the 99 and just be a double damage effect. Because technically, Nekusar does deal damage. Right. But where you can get cute and make you have to get your deck building skills on, if you want it to be your companion, so your 101st card, your starting deck contains only cards with odd converted mana costs and land
Did you do the math of how many I would have to cut?
I want to say it was something like 40.
Oh, okay. That's not the 13 you promised me.
I'll do a double check. We got 16 2-drops, 4 9-drops, 2 6s, and 1 8.
I would have to cut the 9 drop.
But you wouldn't have to cut the 9 drop.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, yeah.
I said the 8 drop, the 6 drop. Yeah, and so you had 9 4-drops. And so it's like you're losing Aetherize, but you still have Aether Spouts. You know, you lose Cyclonic Rift, but you still get to keep the... I don't have a comparison.
I lose half my card draw from Limb Dots. I lose Liliana's. I lose all the talismans. I lose my Thought Vessel.
Hey, I'm trying to tell you, if you want to challenge yourself, become a better deck builder, here's how we can do it. And here's the thing. You don't have to make it the companion if you don't want to, but I do think it actually has a spot in the 99. Right. Because once again, how you kind of said, a lot of times we'll have 2 wheels with the mana to cast both, and it's like, I can't do that, because as I've been in that situation with Xeris, you wheel and then you lose your wheel, and then you don't get a wheel. But if you have an Obosh in hand, even with 2 wheels, like, I play the Obosh, and then I win the game anyways. I think he has a home in here. Like I said, if you get a few in the tank, and you want to make that Tuck brain work, you could make him your companion. And you can become the companion man. You'd be like the Steve Irwin of our group, bringing in all the lost animals.
Only companions on my decks. My kitty cat deck finally will have a new home. Good gravy.
What do you think?
Sounds like a lot of work.
But just think, instead of building those precons, you could then make Nekusar an odd CMC deck.
Then it'll be slower than he ever has been. Adios, removal.
But you know what's not slow? The fact that we finally made it an hour and 40 minutes in and the end of the episode. And as promised, here are some details about our giveaway from our sponsor, Level 1 Game Shop. We're going to be giving away that Chaos Draft Set, which will include 4 CMD Tower playmats, 4 packs of our sleeves, and 4 random pre-release kits. And as promised, I'm giving you little sneak peeks on what those pre-release kits are. Last week, I told you it's going to be an M21 draft kit. We're also going to be doing a War of the Spark draft kit. Pretty excited about that. Considering some of those planeswalkers are still $30. To enter, it's extremely simple. Just promote the content you're watching and listening to. You get an entry for every interaction you do with us on social media, including following our accounts, subscribing to our YouTube page, subscribing to us on the podcast platforms, all that kind of stuff. Hey, you can even leave kind comments on our website. I'm sure Tuck could use the reading material. We will announce the winner on MTG Action 4 News on our 1-year anniversary, August 4th, and social media soon after. And yes, we're doing these giveaways every single month. Could be, well, actually, you know what? This is probably a once-in-a-year thing. We probably won't be doing something like this each month. But we definitely usually give away cool cards, custom decks, different things, just whatever our sponsor, Level 1 Gaming, can provide us. But you know what? We would love 5-star reviews and subscriptions on YouTube and your podcast platform. We'd also love positive feedback if you liked it. You know, if you wanted to reach out to us and find more ways that you can enter into the contest to get free stuff, here's how you can do that. You can reach me at Mr. Combo number 5 on Twitter, all spelled out except for the 5. Big Tuck, where can they reach you if they would like to draw some cards and lose some life?
You're welcome to head out to at Big Tuck Tweeting on Twitter and also Big Tuck at cmdtower.com. I got it.
You can reach our main account at Command Tower on Twitter. I mean, at CMD Tower on Twitter as well.
Look at you.
That was me making fun of Tuck.
How dare you?
We also have a website, cmdtower.com, where we will have the deck list and article posted. Basically, you just have to type in, cue the music, Choked Estuary, Mana Geode, a better Manalith, Dark Deal, Tower.com.
Rude. Very rude.
Squee McGee, if people wanted to find out how to get a hold of yourself and all the stuff that you do, how can they do that?
Oh, you can still find me on Facebook or Instagram at Rich Chaos Records. You can find me on Twitter at Dear Squee. Actually, I got a little bit of news here. I got a email.
Woo!
Wow, it was very exciting.
Wait, was it a nude?
No, it wasn't a nude. It was a question. I'm not going to tell you the details of the question yet because I've got to prepare my statement and answer. But email me. Don't go to Twitter. Don't go to Rich Chaos Records. Go to my email. It's at cmdtower.com. We're going back to the 90s.
If you want to go further into the 90s, you can send a post writer to his studio in the KC metro area if you would like him to help you with any of your audio needs. If you want to support the show further, as well as hook up our sponsors, just so they know it's worth giving away these awesome giveaways, head over to Level 1 Game Shop. And when you place an order in the order notes, just type in CMD Tower so they know that you came from The Collective. Outside of their own storefront, they do have the TCG store. So if you order on there, like a lot of us do, you can order from them and get all that kind of sweet stuff. They do sell our playmat and sleeves, as well as everything else you need from a board game and tabletop experience. If you would like to support us financially, you could head over to our Patreon, patreon.com/CMDTower. We'll sell different reward tiers from like what we talked about, joining that Squeeze choir for a couple months. We'll get you access to all the new goodies that we're doing, which have definitely upgraded from those. No one really built them outside of Spencer, Big Tuck, and Mr. Combo Legend
Potentially
cards.
lackluster, but it's okay. People are still figuring this out.
But that's okay. Yeah, I think we did that in our first month of existence.
Yes, indeed.
But you know, at the top tiers, to get a guest spot on the podcast when we hit our different stretch goals and talk about your own sweet brew, and let me force you to get an Ultra the Brew, Sweet McGee force you to get a Manalith, and Big Tuck force you to suck it. As well as each tier gives you additional entries into the monthly giveaways. And of course, thank you to Pink Royal for the music that you guys provide in the episodes. So, you said we weren't going to do it, but we did it anyways. Nekusar, I draw, you draw, we all draw. The deck's a lot less cheery than it sounds, but how do you feel going through it? How do you feel about the bottle capping? Could we be seeing Partner or Companions Part 2?
Probably not on this one. It's a lot of effort there, but I like the spirit. It's like that Will Smith meme where he's like, he's got the right spirit or whatever. No, it's fun to talk to, right? And like, again, this is one of those things where this is a deck I haven't really touched in a long time, so it's good to hear your feedback of like, cut this, cut that. Like, maybe this isn't the best one in here. Like I said, one of the funnest parts about the show is just going through and being like, I haven't thought about this deck or the mana curve or any of that stuff in years. So just like looking at it kind of goes that way. It is one of those decks where it is kind of like we want to bring the big guns out, I'm going to bring them out, right? Bring them out. And it's one of them. And the last thing I'll say on it, it is I either get killed turn 5 or I'm generally going to be cruising right along.
Yeah, it's a game that, like, me and Big Tuck have been friends for so long, and we've played so much Magic that for the most part, we've seen all of each other's decks multiple times, to where I see this at the table, and I try to warn people, it's not a friendly deck. It's like Friend McCruel with, the Goad.
Right.
And people just, they don't listen, because you start off innocuous, and yes, we're taking a little bit of damage, and I keep telling them, got a spot removal Nekusar. Well, you're doing this thing. And Big Tuck's like, well, look at what Mr. Combo's doing. And it's like, you guys just don't understand. We could just lose out of literally nowhere with no warning whatsoever. So hopefully this episode has opened up your darn eyes and made people realize that this is Satan in group hug. I'm out.
That's
See ya.